see white lies dancing between the lines. She's an atheist. Carousels in her mind, spinning all in her eyes. She's an atheist.
Hello and welcome to the Digital Freethought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. We're recording this on Sunday morning, January 16th, 2022. I'm Larry Rhodes, or Doubter 5, and as usual, we have our co-host online with us. Hello, Wombat.
Shoot for the eyes. I said shoot for the eyes.
Okay. Don't know the reference.
That's a good policy.
Blind them first. Okay. Our guests today are Doubtfire from Florida. Hello. And we have the John Richards from across the pond in England. Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Digital Freethought Radio Hour is a talk radio show about atheism, free thought, rational thought, and humanism and the sciences. Conversely, we also talk about religion, religious faiths, gods, holy books, and superstition. And if you get the feeling that you're the only non-believer in your town, well, you're just not. Here in Knoxville, even in the Bible Belt, we have a group of over 1,000 of us, so there's bound to be others like you there. We'll tell you more about our group after the mid-show break and maybe even talk about how you could start your own group. Wombat, what are we talking about today? What's our topic?
Hey, so I wanted to talk about atheism and whether or not it's boring or not. But I'm going to be honest with you. Speaking of boring, it's been a balmy 1 degree Celsius, 1 degree for the last 2 days. And right now, today, it's doing this little greatest hits between the worst weather patterns in the world. So we'll do some drizzle, do some sleet, then some snow, then some rain on top of it, then sleet, then snow. And it's just depressing. I feel like a kid that got a kite and it's raining the same day. And you're just
Such
like,
as January.
Yeah. It's a real downer. But I'm hoping for good weather in the future. John Richards, what's the weather like up there? Just wondering.
Well, we don't get snow in this particular part of the UK. So all I can report is that we've had it reasonably cold. Mostly here, it's between 10 and 20 centigrade. What's that in American? That's 40.
We do Celsius.
40 to 50 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And occasionally it gets down to 0. And I actually had ice on the car a couple of mornings this week. Not on the ground, just on the roof and the windscreens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Air frost, not ground.
So interesting
frost.
fact, we do use Fahrenheit and we do use Celsius. We use Celsius when we're making cupcakes. And we make so many cupcakes here that it's a good reference for the weather. But we also understand Celsius too. We know 0 freezes, water evaporates, and then if it's ever 100, you're dead. So that's why we like the Fahrenheit system, where it's just like, 60s, 70s, jacket or long sleeve jacket. I don't know. We'll figure out. Scott Williams, all the way over in Florida.
We also got George Buffalo who joined us this morning, so welcome. Back to Scott.
Hey,
what's
George.
your weather like over there? Florida.
Weather is bipolar. It was, I think last weekend it was in the 70s, and then I think it was like on a Monday for the most of the week. Last week it was in the 40s. It was freezing cold and windy, and now it's in the 60s. So just can't make its mind up.
Well, that's still not too bad, though.
Yeah, nice.
Really weird.
60s nice.
Yeah, I take that. Larry, how
it's cold. It's cold for us.
Sure. Larry, how you holding up?
Oh, fine. I finished Alex.
Nice. Half-Life Alex?
Half-Life Alice on the Virtual Quest 2 virtual reality. And I highly recommend the game. I think it's excellent. Of course, I immediately restarted it. So I'm doing it again. It's just great. I'm playing it on an easier level this time, so I can be more enjoyable and kind of a walkthrough. But now that I'm ready, used to the controls, it should be a lot better.
So question, did you play the other Half-Life games, or is this your first
Half-Life? Oh, no, I played them all repeatedly.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite franchises.
Fantastic. So you're right in the heart and potatoes of it.
Yeah,
okay, great. Because we've been talking so much about VR, I actually pulled mine out of the closet and tried and started it up again. So having some fun with that.
Is that an Oculus?
It's an Oculus Rift.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
For me to get started with mine, I have to do a little rigging because it is cabled. So I have to cable it through like an overhead ceiling fan and then to the car and then switch out the batteries and then make sure nothing gets outdated, all that stuff.
Well, if you want to play any co-op games, let me know.
Cool. I'll keep that in mind. Buffalo George, how you been? And what's the weather like up in Kentucky?
I've been fine, thanks. It's sleeting outside, so we're on the edge of a storm that's sweeping south and dumping snow where you are. But it's half rain, half snow. It's about 30 to 32, and it's okay.
That's 32 cupcake temperature units. So cold. That's about 0 degrees centigrade, as John Richards would put it.
Yeah.
I was planning on shoveling today, but I don't think I'm going to need to.
No. You'll need a spoon, if anything. It's just slurpy, slushy outside. It's the worst. It's the worst kind of snow right now. So as soon as it happened this morning, I was just like, okay, I'm inside. We're doing the radio show and we're drawing for the most part today. But I don't mind it because I'm going to try not to stay bored. But unfortunately, I still have to be an atheist. So what am I supposed to do since atheism is so boring? We'll throw it up to John Richards. John Richards, do you think atheism is boring? And for what reasons do you or do you not think that's the case?
Oh, well, you've opened a can of worms there, because first of all, I want to clear up the fact that atheism isn't. It's an it's an atheism, really. Because
I like it.
If you look at all the other words that end in ism, they are ideologies. There's conservatism, radicalism, socialism, communism, libertarianism. They're all ideologies, but atheism isn't. It's a non-belief.
Right.
That's all it is. So
it's opting out.
Yeah, exactly. So given that
we're never being indoctrinated in the first place, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that was me. I wasn't indoctrinated. I was so lucky. So given that it's not really an ism, there's nothing there that could be either boring or exciting.
Now, this is interesting because say everybody just watched the brand new Spider-Man movie and you hadn't, right? There is an example of you not being the case yet. Everyone's having all these fun with all these superheroes running around. It's just like, man, don't talk to John. He's not one of the movie-go watchers. He's not having a fun time as we are. Like, couldn't you see that as a good argument for why atheism, even though if it is and isn't, is also boring?
Well, okay. So in what you're saying therefore is that it's a matter of being in the tribe or not.
Yeah, you're missing out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to be in a tribe. I want to be an individual. And,
interesting.
And anyway, as for whether it's boring or not, let's take it at the face value that, you know, the theists imagine it really is a thing. And let's consider whether it's boring or not. Well, how could it possibly be boring when we have the opportunity to appreciate all the wonders of the universe that are out there that you don't find in books like the Bible? I would say it's more, and I'm going to use an American word here. I would say that it's more awesome than being in a religion, being in a faith.
I bet if we looked up in a Merriam-Webster dictionary, we'd find the word awesome. So thank you for the credit. We'll take it. Manifest destiny. We'll absorb that word.
The thing is, it's a biblical word. God inspires all. And we don't really have that word in the UK.
I don't know. I wouldn't think that it's a biblical word. Just my 2 cents. I mean, even what was it? Oprah on her show said that she didn't think that atheists could experience awe because you got to have a belief in God to have awe, which is crazy.
That's crazy.
Anyway, in the UK, it's not really in our lexicon. Where you say awesome, we would say amazing.
Ah, interesting. Okay, I'll keep that up. Larry, it seemed like you had some comments that you wanted to make.
Oh, now if I can remember what it was.
Womp womp womp.
Well, go on, and I'll think about it some more. It was in the middle of something that John said, but he had changed the subject 2 or 3 times, so I have to come back to it.
John, you got to make sure that when you make your points, that you interject them with a little cattle prod to like Larry. That way, you can like have a association.
Oh, George, yeah, I remember.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to do a replay?
No. It's talking about the context. Atheism is, if you're with a bunch of atheists, atheism is boring. It's one of the things you don't really talk about too much. You say, you still an atheist? Yeah, I'm an atheist. And then that's the end of it. Then we start talking about holidays or family or sports or whatever. However, going to a church and in the middle of the sermon, elbow your neighbor and say, I'm an atheist.
Now you're gonna have a very
now it's exciting.
Things are going to wrap up pretty quick.
Yeah.
No, I could say this,
Real quick.
life outside of the church pew, life outside of listening to a guy have to talk to you or lecture you, literally lecture you for about an hour every day or every week. Oh man, I'm glad I have that time back. Speaking of boring, because I've had times where it's just hard for me to stay awake.
I've always had this problem, you know.
And this is George Brown, the 2.5. Welcome to the show. You came in.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like, what are you going to say at an atheist meeting like this one? You're going to say, I don't believe in God.
Right.
Nah, I don't believe in God either.
Next subject.
Next subject. I want to talk about video games.
I mean, we don't have any statues. We don't have any icons. We don't have.
Well, we can talk about things like science and evolution and things that the religious folk generally tend to shy away from.
That are very amazing.
That are awesome. Awesome.
Well, we can have a song like "I Don't Believe in God."
Yeah. Well, there's Imagine.
There is Imagine. Before we go to Buffalo, Georgia, you would say, like, when you do these atheist meetups, it's relatively much more affordable than saying starting up a church and trying to get the tax-free accreditation or have a treasury department. It's just like, hey, you got atheist friends, just hang out with your atheist friends. There's no expectation of dues or anything like that. So more stuff there. But we're not here to bang on religion. We're here to talk about why atheism is boring. And who's going to explain it better than George Buffalo?
No, it's not at all boring, because you get to think about things that are really exciting, like take a walk in the woods and look at anything and imagine how much you don't know about whatever you're looking at.
And the
That
process
sounds
is by
so
which,
much more boring than a Christian who looks at a tree and says, therefore my God exists.
yeah, God did it. And
Or
that's
that
in the
might be
subject.
dirty. It might be dirty, so I shouldn't touch it.
Mhm.
It might be dirty, so I wouldn't touch it.
I don't know whether there's a survey anywhere, but I suspect that most of the least boring people are atheists. I mean, when you think about it, there's the comedians; they're pretty much all atheists.
Sure.
There's the
Scientists.
Good ones, at least.
the
good ones, at
musicians.
least.
The musicians
Also the good ones.
are all
Also the good ones.
pretty much atheists.
Yeah.
Scientists, and I think a lot of people who are in business and politics probably are atheists, but they don't want to admit it because they might lose customers. Yeah. So I think if there should be, maybe we should do a survey. There should be a list of this so that we can provide some evidence to show that we are the least boring people.
Not only that,
Donald Trump is an athist.
Because he declared it.
No. I mean, he's an atheist so long, for everybody else except himself.
Yes.
But he held up a Bible in front of a church. Doesn't that mean he's a
so
believer?
there is that. But
Hypocrite.
Well, it's a Bible about him, I think.
Yeah. No, I believe
I'll
it.
say this.
Yeah.
I'll make this one quick point. There are religious presidents and political figures that we've had who only when they go against their dogma to serve the greater good do we recognize that they're actually good leaders. So, for example, we've had Biden, who is devoutly Catholic, who one of his first, executive orders was to reinforce rights for abortion, which is absolutely against the Catholic Church. And when I saw that, I was like, that's a guy who's not doing what his dogma is telling him to do. That's fantastic. And I'm really, really happy to have that.
On that subject, this very week, the Pope has made a speech in which he says, if you don't have children, you're selfish.
Well, his major audience, of course, are other Catholics, so that they can have children and bring them into the church. It's a way of growing the church.
Does this mean he's got children himself?
He might. Let's be honest. Hey, Scott Williams, or Scott Williamson, Doubtfire, I want to know about you. Do you think atheism is boring, and what could be more interesting if we were to, excite it up a little bit?
Man, that's a great question. But I'm kind of a strange person, maybe. But I don't find atheism boring at all. Like, it gives me meaning and purpose in life. Like, an example, when I do atheism, so to speak, at work, I found out just about everyone I work for, or work with rather, are atheists. They didn't want to come out and say anything, but we all figured it out somehow. And so we talked about it. I had a little get together on Friday, and we talked about atheism and religion. We talked about other things, but we oftentimes have fun talking about our religious experiences and this and that. But so it's fun in that sense. And then I'm in these debate groups, and I'm debating theists, and we're doing atheism on that level. So it's fun in that respect. And just as George was saying about appreciating nature. And then Tyrone, you asked how could we spice it up, or how can we make it even better? As you know, I'm kind of a naturalist, or what you would call a naturalist pantheist or scientific pantheist. So what that really means is that everything that the supernatural religious gods sort of explain, naturalism seems to do the same thing, if not better. At least we have a grounding for our God, so to speak. God, not really a God, but nature. And I find that makes you appreciate, like George was saying, makes you appreciate nature, gives you awe, gives you wonder, the mystery of the world, mystery of life, all that's exciting stuff. I think having all your questions and mysteries answered would be boring. Having God as the answer to anything and everything is kind of boring. And I think that's part of the reason I left religion. It was just boring, and now I've never had a problem. And then one more thing.
The reason you left religion was because it was boring. That's a great point. Or that's a great.
It was boring. That was a major part of it. Sitting through all those meetings and hearing the same message over and over, not able to explore, other alternative views, things like that. That's boring. And then, a few years ago, as you may know, also, I used to think that Buddhists believed in God, and I used to always try to have that conversation with a Buddhist, a priest, and he told me that Buddhists were atheists, and that threw me for a loop, and I was like, wait a minute, how does that work?
Most Eastern religions are. Like Taoism,
so he was
Confucianism, all that.
That atheism is actually the foundation of their philosophies of unattachment and things like that. So there's a lot of excitement, I think, with atheism, no matter how you look at it, or how you approach it. But that's just my view.
Cool. John, it looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, well, I'm thinking atheism is boring compared to what? I mean, does that mean that all
roller coasters? This is what we're talking about. Roller coasters, peppermint sticks, Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Yeah,
does it mean that all theisms are not boring, or is it just a specific one? And if so, which one? I'd like it to be Unkalunkalu. It's my favorite god.
I would argue that whatever. Now, let me make sure I get this right. Not the Mennonites, but the Shiwis, who are the ones who are like no technology. Larry, help me out here.
Oh yes,
no,
Mennonites and Amish.
Amish. I would say Amish is like one of the top three most boring. Top three most boring is like, what are you gonna do today? Make some straw hats? Ooh, that's rough.
Milk our cows.
Yeah. But I would say my point is nature is awesome, and I find science to be an appreciation of nature. Like when I'm doing physics, I'm not just doing it so I can pass a test. I'm doing it so I can understand how the universe works, or at least a model to make it make more sense in a way, and predict things that'll happen in the future and why things happen. And I find that to be really, really amazing that it works on that level. It's really,
absolutely
really great.
Sure.
Yeah, well, expanding on that, When the Bible was written, of course, we didn't know about microbes. So when microscopes were invented, everything immediately became much less boring.
Much less mysterious. Yeah. I hear that. Yeah, when you remove the mystique, you can get it. But there's so much more crazy stuff about microorganisms. That you know, unsurprisingly, even up to now, we're still, you know, painfully trying to understand and convince other people of. Right. I mean, we just got over the please wash your hands sort of curve over the last year. Now we're getting into vaccines. George Brown, so you are a natural atheist. You've never had the exposure to other things, but you have still a Jewish upbringing, and maybe we're exposed to other religions, at least was it through festivals or holidays as you were growing up?
Excuse me.
I'm wondering.
I'm
one
coughing.
of the things You're fine. I know. One of the things I like about atheism is that I can celebrate other holidays from other religions without any baggage or worry that my God is going to be angry at me for doing that.
Well, but the thing is, I don't know when to stand up and when to sit down in your church.
They'll tell you.
I never know, so I'm always embarrassed. And I was not brought up Jewish either. I was not brought up anything. I mean, my parents.
As a Brooklynite, though, right?
Well, Brooklyn's the biggest has got the biggest population in New York City, and everybody is different. You know, I guess for some reason everybody gets along. Mostly, there are a certain amount of squabbling that goes on, and there's some fascists in New York City just to make life interesting.
And gangs, they don't get along very well generally.
But they're all snapping. They snap and they walk down alleys like this. So in New York, they're all okay.
They're good dancers, though.
Yeah, they're great dancers.
I'm not really awake enough to have much. I feel like the dormouse this morning. I just woke up, and at least I didn't have to use this thing to grind the coffee that you sent me, Wombat. You sent me coffee, Wombat.
Now, someone may have sent you coffee on my behalf. I don't recall exactly.
Look at this.
I know you got some treats. I know. I want to see the walking cane eventually too, if you don't mind me.
I didn't assemble it.
Anyway, we're really happy that you're back, and you look a lot more healthy too. I'm gonna be honest with
you. Well, you know, it was interesting what we're talking about here, because where I live here, halfway between Knoxville and Chattanooga, there are 3 Mennonite communities, and I'm talking about horse and buggy Mennonites. Like the Amish, you know, I mean, horses and buggies, black buggies, you know, women who wear beautiful gray dresses and bonnets, and when you see the women at all, that is. And then there was the Mennonite who was cleaning my hospital room. And I asked her, what is that thing that you're wearing on your head? She was wearing a white handkerchief on her head. And she said, well, that's to remind me to pray. She said, I pray all the time. And I said, would you mind telling me what religion you are? And she said, I'm a Mennonite. Now, she's the other kind of Mennonite. We have them too. Those are the Mennonites whose church has a website. She said, we use electricity. And she asked me something, and I don't remember what it was she asked me, but my answer was, I don't believe in God. And she said, well, how can you explain the wonders of the human body and how all your organs work and things like that? I said, I used one of Larry's answers. I said, we don't know the answers yet. Science hasn't figured them out, but they will. And,
or not. I'm also okay with that too.
I like that. I like that one. I like that one too.
Hey, Larry, we're getting near the end of the show. I will tell you this. How often does George's area get cleaned by that religious lady or that religious person? They do it a night, and it's a man, so it's a Mennonite. Larry,
Oh man,
go on ahead.
Ooh,
There you go.
that's bad.
Take us out. Take us out. Take us out.
Sure.
Take us out.
This is the
I'm trying to
digital
keep it
free
entertaining
thought.
because we're just a bunch of atheists. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, we don't want to be boring. This
Yeah,
is
exactly.
the Digital Free Thought Radio Hour on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we'll be right back after this short break. Hello, and welcome back to the second half of the Digital Free Thought Radio Hour. I'm Doubter 5, and we're on WOZO Radio 103.9 LPFM right here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Let's talk about the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, which was founded in 2002. We're in our 20th year. We have over 1,000 members now, and we have weekly in-person meetings in Knoxville's Old City at the Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria. Look for us inside at the high top tables in the center of the big room. We're usually the loudest, happiest group there. If you'd like to join our Tuesday evening virtual Zoom meeting, send us an email request at askanatheist@knoxvilleatheists.org, or you can send it to letschattse@gmail.com. You can find us online at Facebook, meetup.com, or knoxvilleatheist.org is the main website. You can just Google Knoxville Atheists and get there. It's just that simple. By the way, if you don't live in Knoxville, you should still go to Meetup and do a search for an atheist group in your town. Don't find one? Start one. Wombat, where you want to pick up?
So I think we did a really good review on the idea of, is atheism boring? I think our overall takeaways is that it's not as boring as you think. In fact, it's actually pretty interesting for a lot of different kinds of reasons. And there are a lot of, sometimes it could be an acquired taste, particularly if you're coming from religion, but overall it's worth the transition if it's purely based on entertainment, because there's a lot of awesome stuff to behold. Now, here's the weird thing. I had another topic I wanted to bring up for today. I have been on a diet since about the start of December. I've lost 25 pounds so far. I feel pretty good about that. I'm sticking to it.
Well done.
But
Congrats.
one of the things that I've noticed is like weird cravings that are akin to like stuff that certain religions will tell me not to have whatsoever. So like, hey, if I want to put bacon on top of pizza, I can't eat that because one, for me, it's too many calories and it's just empty carbs. But for the religious sect, it's because God doesn't want you to eat pork. And it made me think, why are there religious restrictions in place in the first place? If we already know the nutritional value, the caloric values, and we know that as long as we maintain a deficit, we lose fat, and if we know where all the good sources of protein are, why is it that we can't eat shellfish? Why isn't that we can't eat two different kinds of meat on the same plate? Why is pork a bad thing? And so I was running through some ideas in my head, but of course, I'd love to hear what the roundtable thinks. My thought is that it is maybe an original survival mechanism. Maybe we didn't know how to cook pork or something like that to get all the bacteria out, or get all the blood cured, so it doesn't make us sick, right? And then some people were eating it and dying, and they're like, no, we don't like that. God doesn't want you to do that. Now you have to listen to me. Maybe that was it in the nutshell. I'm not sure. In fact, I'm going to throw up to George Buffalo first. Why do you think religion has dietary restrictions?
I think it's mostly historical, and maybe back to the days when we didn't understand the medical or the science aspects. And I also think there's buried within the history was the occurrence of an Elmer Gantry person who could convince other people that it was a good idea to do this, and that helped for him to gather a following. So I think a lot of this stuff is based upon a glib, intelligent person who wanted to start something and created symbols so that others would follow him.
Interesting. George Brown, what do you think?
I think that we have forgotten that fish become poisonous on Fridays and not the other.
Yeah, or
but how does it know?
Yeah, when you say it that way, it's sort of like was it a rule put in place to make sure that supplies of things last longer that were probably harder to get on certain days of the week? Or is it to spite a guy who's like, I'm the Bill Fish Company, it's like, I'm only open on Fridays, so it's like, great, my religion is now don't eat fish on Fridays because we don't like Bill. John Richards, why do you think dietary restrictions exist in religions? Big question. Take your time with the answer.
Yeah, I've got a response to that. I think it's tribal. I think the intention behind it is conformity. It's to make people who are in your tribe eat together and not permit any invited guests from another tribe because they can't eat what you're eating. So that's the basis of it, to my mind. I mean, when you think that, it's the same as taboos, isn't it? When you think about there's kosher for the Jews, there's halal and haram for the Muslims, and it's it's all about having something that's exclusive to you, and anybody who wants to come and share your table, and they've got to join. It's like an entry fee. Okay,
that's good. Do you also think that there's a possibility that it's a good way to cover up mistakes? Like, for example, unleavened bread. I'm not to put Jews on the target here, but like maybe someone made that by accident and they're like, no. God wanted me to make it that way. And this is the way how we're going to have to eat it from now on. Sorry, guys. That's it. It's matzah. It's not my bad. It's matzah. I meant to do that. Like, but it should be yeast. It should be a bunch of, no. It's supposed to be hard and fit like a rock. George Brown, what do you think?
I think matzah is the most unappetizing thing in the world. It's almost as appetizing as a veggie burger, which is another topic we were going to talk about, wasn't it?
George Brown, why don't you head into
Tell us about veggie burgers.
Sure.
I don't have much to say. I mean, I've gotten into eating tofu before I moved here, but I went to a restaurant called Hardee's. It's a chain. Here in these parts. In California, it has a different name, and I don't remember.
Carl's Jr. in California.
Juniors? Oh, I don't know that either.
Or Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr.
Oh, Carl's Jr. Yeah. So they made a big deal about their wonderful veggie burger, and I thought, boy, I got to try that. And I went in, and I don't know how in the world did they make this stuff. It was like if you could moisten cardboard, that's what you'd have.
So it tasted nothing like meat.
Something
it tasted like moistened cardboard.
Veggie burger, if you didn't know, is chopped up different pieces of plants, but made with a glue to hold them all together again. And if you don't like the idea of eating, if you don't like the idea of edible glue, don't. You can stay away from it. It's a plant-based adhesive, but yeah, a lot of things are plant-based. Hey, George Brownflow, what's going on?
I disagree. I've had veggie burgers that I think are pretty good, and the first one actually was I can't believe it's not a burger, or I can't believe it's not beef.
Was it one of the amazing beef? Yeah. And
I was actually sorry to see it be closed out. It was closed out because it wasn't popular. It wasn't selling. And of course, it started out at being about $1 more for a hamburger than if it was a beef burger. So you got to separate the marketing factors and economic factors before you analyze how good it tastes and so forth. But I know a number of my colleagues who are actually involved in the research of alternative meat. Some of them are using a soybean protein that's been modified to give the red color of blood, and that's incorporated. And there's a lot of flavor compounds that are going into it. It's a very, it's a big business right now, and as far as I know, in my taste, they're getting closer and closer. So that if you went in a restaurant, and you sat down, and you had one of these things, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So and it's definitely a thing of the future.
I definitely think we're moving there very quickly, and I think even if it doesn't catch on quick, we'll see it again pretty soon. But I like the idea of showcasing what beef could taste like to people who religiously can't eat beef. So, for example, if you're a Hindu and you see the Amazing Whopper, here's an opportunity to know what beef tastes like. Now, this is also something that I know. I have a family member that's in Pakistan who is Muslim, and she had the opportunity to eat turkey bacon, which is halal in a sense. Like it doesn't really apply in that case, but she chose not to because she's like, well, why should I even try to taste what bacon tastes like? Because I already know. It's like, you don't know you don't like it. You just know you can't have it, right? So here's an opportunity to taste what it tastes like without having to, like, you don't have to turn your nose up at it because you don't know either way. And we know for a fact it tastes good. It's all the ingredients of good put in one delicious form. So like, try it. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. She still didn't want to. So there's a mental hang up either way.
Yeah,
George, go for it.
Another aspect, of course, is that a beef generates about 100 times as much CO2 in the process of making its meat. It uses 10 times as much water as raising any other critter. And of course, it farts and belches at both ends, and that's methane. So as far as the nature is concerned, environment is concerned, they are the worst possible food in terms of generating or accelerating climate change. Any ruminant animal, and so chickens aren't nearly as bad. Pork's not really that bad, and it all has to do with the bacteria that they have in their guts, and how much resources they consume to produce the meat. So now, alternative meats, artificial meats, are going to be a thing of the future.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'd like to see more of that soy KFC chicken, to be honest with you, because I try that. It turns out when you deep fry something, it doesn't matter what it is, it's going to taste like KFC food.
And they're frying it in vegetable oil too, aren't they?
Yeah. So it can be done. Scott, do you have opinions on why you think there are religious dietary restrictions? And did you ever have to go any of them while you were in the truth? In the truth, I mean,
yeah. When I was in the truth, when I was with JWs, we couldn't eat blood products, so anything like that. But when I left Jehovah's Witnesses,
sorry for interrupting. Sorry for interrupting. But what did that include? Like, because a lot of people make the misconception that red hemoglobin that comes off of meat is blood, when it in fact is not. John Richards, you would support me in the idea that hemoglobin, the red stuff that comes off of red meat, is not in fact blood. George, would you agree with that? John, would you agree with that? Can I get some biochemists?
No.
That
is the case. That is factually the case, that it is not blood. If you put that into a bloodstream, it's not going to serve because it doesn't have it is protein. Yeah, it's proteins in plasma, but it is not blood.
Yeah,
so
it's not the full. It's not the full. The full. What's the expression? What are those dancers? The full Monty. It's not the full Monty of blood.
It is essentially a red muscle cell that has been dehydrated and all the liquid has come out. And you're not eating blood, you're just having cytoplasm that is tinted red. And it looks the same, but it is in fact not the same. And it's delicious, by the way. But Scott, but the religious doctrine of Jehovah's Witness says you can't eat blood, but it can't recognize it scientifically. So they say any red liquid that comes out of an animal or any meat product is in fact blood. And that is not even factually true. So it's one of those weird things that really
they talk about they would talk about don't eat blood sausages, stay away from stuff like that. But that's it's baloney. When I left, those it's baloney.
Literally.
When I left JW's, there was a book, and this goes right into this, where we're talking about why the dietary restrictions. There was a book by, at the time, was a leading anthropologist. I think his name was Marvin Harris. And he came up with a book called Cows, Pigs, Wars, and Witches, The Riddles of Culture. And what he would do is he would ask, among other things, like, why do we have wars and witches, burnings and things like that in ancient times? But also, why do Hindus not eat cows? Why do Jews and Muslims refuse to eat pork? And he would give answers about human behavior, showing that no matter how bizarre a person's behavior may seem, it always seems to stem from some identifiable and intelligible source. And it would just be cloaked in some religious language or some religious coding. And so that's another perspective, but that's maybe it's more of systemic thing. I don't think it's really conscious on the minds of the religious, of course. I didn't know about it.
Sure.
They're just told, don't do this, don't do that. This is, God don't like it, blah, blah, blah. So,
John
but
Richards.
there may be, yeah.
Well, it's pretty likely that some of these taboos originated for health reasons, isn't it? I mean, in the days before freezers and refrigerators, stuff went off very quickly. Like shellfish, for example. If you don't eat that tomorrow, don't eat it at all. And something else would be pork or meat, pig products, because in the olden days, most pigs were infected with bladder worms that they started in the gut, but then they burrowed into the flesh. And if you ate them, you got them. And sometimes they would burrow through your body and end up in your brain, which wasn't a good idea.
Nope.
So that's another reason that historically may have started the trend of avoiding pig meat. Of course, nowadays it's not applicable because we worm our pigs. They don't suffer from that disease. And we've got brilliant ways of keeping meat fresh. So eat pigs, it's delicious.
And we cook it well. We understand the necessity for cooking it well.
Yes.
But think about it in this way. We have, for example, cultures that do not eat beef, while it is based on religion, is with full understanding of the fact of, we know it's safe to eat. Like, we're not under no suspicions that we'll be under any harm if we eat this beef. It's that we hold this animal sacred. And even though there's billions of people in our country, we have chosen not to eat this particular meat product. We've made that conscious decision as a group. Do you think that falls under the same tribalism that you were talking about before? Or is that a detriment to the culture? Or, I mean, because there are people starving, right?
I would put it in the same category. I mean, what is sacred anyway? What does that mean? It's just an alternative word for taboo, isn't it?
Well, at the time of famines in India, cows were the form of food at one time. And then at that particular time is when the tradition of not eating the cow came in vogue. And you would think, well, why is that? If they're starving, why wouldn't they eat the cows? Well, what they realized was cows also give you milk. And if you kill all the cows, you're not going to get any milk, and then you're really in trouble. So they kind of thought, let's make the cows sacred. We need them for the milk, and let's honor the cow instead of eating them, because then we'll be dead.
Yeah. And not only that, but they generate really great fertilizer. So like if you are making a bunch of tea, or if you're making a bunch of other stuff and crops that you need to sell to other places, you need fertilizer to be able to do that. And here's a great resource for it, and it doesn't work when they're dead.
And some Hindus regard their urine as medicine. They drink the cow urine.
Everyone has a best friend who thinks that too. So yeah, it's not that far away. It's not that far away. Hey, what's up, George Brown?
It's all a bunch of BS.
There you go. Very, very nice. Hey, I
There's
want to
one,
talk about
people eat clay. You ever heard of
idea,
eating clay?
I've heard of that as well, yeah. But the idea, and John, you were alluding to this before, that people do it because, or people do certain things because they're biblical. And that goes back to whether or not there's certain beliefs because they think atheism is boring, or because of dietary restrictions. They do it because of biblical reasons. Larry, I have this very confident belief. I wouldn't say I'm 100%, but I'm saying I'm very, very confident that everything that is claimed to be biblical existed before the Bible. And if that's the case, why are we even, why are we giving credit to the Bible?
Yeah, the Bible didn't come into existence until like 300 AD. Up until then, there were just individual stories that were told around the campfire, told in tribal meetings, written down into chapters, and then later assembled into books. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of these books that were never made it into the Bible that used to be part of Jewish religious ceremonies and teachings. It's just the Council of Nicaea in Rome.
Yep. Yeah.
Sat down with a bunch of people and decided which ones were actually holy and the Word of God, and throughout all the other ones, the Gnostic Gospels are a good example of that. So, yeah. I'm thinking about the history of what you can eat and what you can't eat according to religions. I think it's a mishmash of what we've all been talking about. I think it's us versus them, the way of identifying us. We don't eat meat on Friday, so you are not part of us if you do. The dietary problems with infection and parasites, maybe even the availability of certain things, so that you had to cut out eating it one day a week or not eat it at all. I think that it's just lost in the history of time, or like in the distance of time. But we have our science now. We know what's good to eat. We know how to prepare it. We can eat pretty much anything we want to, as long as it's prepared correctly. So it's just an interesting retrospect to find out why it used to be that way.
So one quick point before we go to George Buffalo and then John Richards. So because we know the science, in my head, it was never about the science. It was never about health. It was about control. And the reason why these dietary restrictions exist was because there was a group trying to control another group. Because even when we're informed with the proper ways of eating, those rules still stay.
Well, I've got a brother-in-law who sells shellfish. This is 2,000 years ago. Yeah, but no, I'm kidding. And he says, I don't like him, so he's not a part of our religion, so we don't eat those anymore. We'll put him out of business. Could be economic.
Yeah. George Buffalo.
Another selfish reason, and that is, if you don't have a taboo, are you sure you're going to get into heaven?
Yeah, it's true. You have to have some sort of weird thing in your head.
You got to have something. You got to give up some comfort.
It's
going to get
it. There's some sort of sacrificial point of it. John Richards, it's not that easy. John Richards, what do you think?
Well, I was wondering whether Larry's mishmash is some sort of potato dish, but
potato mishmash, yep.
John, real quick question. So it's not potato?
And it's not tomato either.
Oh, are you just hanging out with us?
It's tater. What are you talking about?
It's a tater. That's
Anyway, the other thing I wanted to say is that, linking back to the first half, going on dietary information alone, being able to eat everything, the atheist position, is obviously much more awesome than having a restricted diet. So it's less boring to be an atheist from a food point of view.
More exciting.
Very good. Hey, that's a good
but
drawback.
you may not get into heaven.
No, hey, you know what? If there's bacon in hell, sign me up. I'm good. I'm fine with it. Hey, why don't we do some closing words before we head out? So on both sides of the topic, Scott, on the idea of atheism being boring and then the idea of dietary restrictions, what's your final words?
Atheism isn't boring because you can eat whatever you want. So I got both questions answered in one answer.
Sure. John Richards, I saw your interview with that paleontologist. You had a good time with them. What was some of the cool things that he was telling us about?
Oh, he's a retired GP who has moved to the Isle of Wight to pursue his childhood dream of searching for fossils. And he's discovered, he's only been doing it a few months, and he's discovered a huge dinosaur bone, because the Isle of Wight is the best location for dinosaurs in Europe.
Got it.
And we need to promote this because it's an attribute, it's of tourism and academic interest. So go to the Isle of Wight and see the dinosaurs.
Isle of Wight. Hey, something cool is La Brea tar pits in California still exist, and they're still pulling things out of that pit. It's this giant literal tar pit, and a bunch of stuff over millennia have died in it. And every single time they make new technology that can dig deeper and pull more stuff out, they keep pulling out more cool things. And I'm just like, isn't this great that we have a little nice time capsule in the middle of LA, more or less LA?
And the open top bus tour goes past it in LA.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing that I'd like to throw out is you said you found a really big dinosaur bone in the Isle of Wight. One of the upsides to the eventual disaster of climate change is that we will eventually start being able to dig in Antarctica, and I'd love to see what kind of dinosaur bones we pull out from there in the horizon of human existence on this planet. It'll be fun. George Brown, the second and a half. Coffee is now a dietary taboo in atheism. What are you going to do? What religion are you now going to convert to?
I'm going to become a chocolate junkie. But I discovered La Brea tar pits too, and at night. And I think why all those antediluvian animals died in there was because they got high in the art museum next door.
Interesting. Nice.
There's the wonderful art museum, and you dig all those paintings, and then you get stuck in the tar.
One of the dark things they don't tell you about the tar pits is there used to be a layer where you would find human bodies, because before it was a national recognition, it was a great way to dispose of nefarious activities. But the cool thing was all those bodies were at the very, very top layer. And then as you get down, that's when you start finding the saber-toothed tigers. And then further down from there, the more reptilian stuff. It's like, oh, it's still valid, guys. It's great. George.
Well, there are other tar pits. And why doesn't anybody talk about that?
That's true. Good point. They don't have the marketing. Or the movie star.
They're not downtown.
They don't have the square chin jaw. That's why. George Brown, any final thoughts on the idea of dietary restrictions and whether or not atheism is boring?
Well, I'll tell you, as a classical musician, I'm really, I love religious music from the Renaissance. And I love religious music from the Baroque period. What happened to it? Why did church music? I'm not talking about the Black church here, which has really great music, but all the other churches, it's just their music got so bland and boring. I don't get it.
You need diversity and a desire to change to keep music, in my opinion, lively and on a certain sort of precipice of quality. And it stagnates very quickly if you take away those inspirations or influences. And so chamber music hasn't had a lot of it over time. George Buffalo, the idea of atheism being boring and dietary restrictions. Final words?
Atheism is not as far away from being boring because it also contains reason. And dietary restrictions, no, except I don't want to be the first one to try something that hasn't been tried before.
Sure. I'll let you get away with saying atheism contains reason. I kind of like what John Richards was saying, that atheism really isn't, because there really isn't anything about it. And I have found many unreasonable atheists and had very enlightening conversations with them. So it's not enough just to not believe in a God. It's to have a good reason why not to as well, because you can easily call yourself. There you go. I love that. I love it. All right, Larry, before we get into you, let's do some final plugs. John Richards, anything you'd like to plug before we head out?
Sure. Yeah, you've already plugged my Freethought Hour show, and of course that's preceded by Global Atheist News on my Freethought Productions channel. But today I really want to plug What If You're Wrong, which is a song with lyrics by Richard Dawkins.
Interesting.
And that's out there now. So I can put a link into you for this, and you can listen to the song, lyrics by Richard Dawkins, and it's plugging the Freethought City. That's freethought.city/Kickstarter.
I love it. And the idea that it's not a religious person asking an atheist, what if you're wrong? Because I hate getting that question. It's asking a religious person.
It is based on that.
I know, but it's a nice little tongue-in-cheeky British sort of like, hoo-hoo, haha, gotcha, I'm very clever sort of a turnaround, and I love it. Scott Williamson, anything you'd like to plug? I know you got that new music channel coming out.
Oh, yeah, I've got a new music channel called Electro Live, and I'm just throwing up a lot of videos, and hopefully we'll be shining a light on other artists as well, not just myself, but I'm just starting somewhere with it, see what happens. It's that. Fantastic. And releasing more records and stuff like that. It's just all fun, man. Keep atheism fun.
Nice. I'll give you some of my music. Let's make a uniform atheist channel to promote. I'm down with that.
Let's do it. Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be really great.
Larry, we're at the end of the show. Could you tell me what chapter of your book talks about how atheism is boring, so that I can find out what it's all about?
I don't think I have that chapter in there.
Well,
Atheism is not boring. It supports and understands the scientific method, which blows away taboos and allows us to understand the universe. How could that possibly be boring?
What great, well said.
Yep. No, this is, let me get my notes here. I do have a book, though, that, as you mentioned, it's available on Amazon and other places that sell books. It's called Atheism, What's It All About? I also have a YouTube channel that can be found by searching for Doubter5 or Larry Rhodes. If you like this show, be sure to visit digitalfreethought.com/blog for many atheist archives, songs, articles, etc. It's an atheist themed blog. If you have questions for the show, you can send them to askanatheist@knoxvilleatheist.org or send them to letschatse@gmail.com, and we'll answer them on future shows. If you are having trouble, emotional, logical, whatever trouble leaving religious beliefs behind, there's help out there. Go to recoveringfromreligion.org and see what they have to do or say to help you. Thank you for joining us on the Digital Freethought Radio Hour. Remember, you can find the show on Apple iTunes, Pocket Cast, Amazon, or Pocket Podcasts everywhere. Just search for Digital Freethought Radio Hour. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Remember, everybody is going to somebody else's hell. The time to worry about it is when they prove that heavens and hells and souls are real. Until then, don't sweat it. Enjoy your life, and we'll see you next week. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.